top of his head. Come and listen to the words that he said. If you wasn't sure, well now you will know. This will be one of your favorite shows.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Hoss Talks. In the studio with me now, Joey Buntin. I know that name has got to sound familiar to some of my viewers, but Joey, just a real quick, who you are, what you do, and where you're from.
Joey Buntin, Newcastle. Been in Newcastle for a while. I manage an O'Reilly Auto Parts there in Newcastle. Racing's our side gig.
Racing's the side gig.
Done it for, I started in 99. Family started a long time before that.
So for those that don't know, like, you haven't always been like a micro guy. Hoss Talks is sort of a micro show. However, we do get the occasion to be blessed with some people that not necessarily get started in the micro world. Your family, for the longest time, started at State Fair Speedway. Did they ever do any racing at Taft? Did it go back that far?
I think my uncle Lloyd did.
At Taft Stadium there in Oklahoma City, which, if those of you that know or don't know, now is a soccer stadium. Oklahoma City Soccer plays there or something like that. And then State Fair Speedway was the ultimate, the freaking sweetest of sweet. We both grew up there as kids going there.
That's a shame.
And it is a shame. But the Buntin family is huge.
Yeah.
Like, you've got aunts, uncles, cousins, brothers, nephews.
Oh, at one point
nieces.
in time, we could make up almost a whole A feature by ourselves at the fairgrounds.
Wow.
Yeah, with different, the Jarvises and Jorski.
Everyone that's married in and
the Bonsteads.
The Allens, right?
Allens. So,
Man, wild.
So I raced 99 to 15.
Right.
And Abby said, hey, I want to race. And all my stuff went up for sale. We bought we had a go-kart my brother built. She raced at Shawnee a couple times. And then we went from there to the junior sprint at 44.
Right.
And raced there and restrictor there. And then...
You had a Factor 1, right?
The junior sprint was a Kidwell.
Right.
But the restrictor, we had a Factor 1 and then a PMP, and then switched to the Factor 1 when she started racing for Brian here.
Oh, yeah. I remember that. I almost forgot about that.
Outlaw. So
I totally forgot about that. That spaced my mind.
Yeah.
But so for you racing, you ran factory stocks, modifieds.
Factory stocks,
sprint
modified,
cars.
sport mods. That was a short stint, but it was an awesome one. 2008 and 2009 sprint cars at the fairgrounds and Meeker. And after that, I went back to stock cars at Ardmore because the fairgrounds shut down. So
Right. So I grew up as a open wheel, like, sprint car fan. My dad, that's what I got into. Then whenever I was in high school, that's whenever I hooked up with Dusty Matlock and Chris Roach and all those guys, and I became like a factory stock guy. And we were all buddies and rivals and whatever you want to call it throughout the whole thing. And I remember the first time I saw that you had gotten a sprint car. You and your brother both got sprint cars, right?
Yeah.
He got one first.
Yeah.
And then you got one, and we were all like, are you effing kidding me? The Buntin brothers got sprint cars? This is going to be hilarious.
it was awesome.
And you guys didn't do too bad.
Yeah. It was the very first time we went to Ardmore to practice. And a factory stock, you got to set it like way before.
Yeah.
And anticipate. And in a sprint car, when you turn it, it's there. So we pull up, I get on the track, and naturally, it's gas on. So we get around the back straightaway, we open it up, and the track's pretty dusty because they didn't really prep it. But I go in that first corner, and I just turn it, and I'm like factory stock turning it right through the infield. It turns fast. So that taught me real fast. You don't turn until it's time. Where factory stock, it's...
Wait
then
for it.
Right. So,
3 hours later.
Yeah.
It goes around.
So, but the adaptation, it wasn't bad at all.
Right.
Luckily, we had quite a few people who were able to, coach us in the sprint cars because they are completely different, clearly.
Yeah.
And that probably helped a lot going into the micros.
The micros and everything else.
Not saying we set the world on fire in micros either, but
Right.
it was still cool.
You have a roundabout idea. So The sprint car deal lasted how long? Was it 2 years?
Dustin did it a full 2 years, and then I just did 2008 and a little bit of 2009, right when the WoW series was coming in.
Right.
The wingless.
So what made you guys want to do that? Like, what you guys for the longest time, your family was like all about the full body stuff, and then
well, naturally, we kind of still are going. You know, my dad still has a sport mod and a full body car that Casey and Abby are racing, but what we done modifieds, we had done factory stocks. There wasn't pro stocks anymore,
right?
And Dustin got a whatever idea he came across, and he was like, "Oh, let's do it." So here we were.
Just dive right in.
So,
just get after it.
Right. But it was awesome.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
It's probably one of those experiences where you're like, I'm glad I did it, but I'm pretty crazy that I can't believe that I did it type of thing.
Yeah. I mean, it was we were ate up. I mean, it was Friday night at Fairgrounds. And in the factory stock, it was, all right, we're going to race Friday night and we're going to chill the rest.
Right.
When we got sprint cars, it was Friday night Fairgrounds, Saturday night, either Meeker or Lawton.
Right.
It didn't matter. We were going somewhere.
You're going somewhere to race them. Getting that
So-
seat time, all the seat time you can get, man.
But it was fun. I don't know which one was more fun. The modified, you know, the old car hiking
Yeah.
up on the left rear, your neck's bent going down a straightaway and you can feel it digging, or hauling tail into the corner and turning in the car, just dropping on that corner. Both of them are two separate feelings, but super awesome.
So it's been how long since you've been out of a car?
I quit in 15. I raced a
15.
car for the Race for a Cure race that Ardmore does every year,
Right.
where everything's donated. The drivers donate all their
Right.
winnings
and everything else.
Promoter cuts his hair, shaves his head off. It's a big deal there.
Right.
I raced somebody else's car. Hadn't been in a car in 2 years. Won the heat and fourth in the A. So
Not too shabby, right?
that's 2 years out of it.
So now you fast forward a few years. Your daughter's heavily involved into racing. You're doing the junior sprint deal. You do the restrictor thing. You run the A-class stuff a little bit. Then you have another little one that's starting to break into it, and this whole mini mods situation comes into play. And you being a modified full body car guy, you're like, this looks interesting.
Right.
And you kind of dive full force into that. Just like with everything else, you don't half-ass anything. You get right in there and get after it. And to the point now where you're actually building cars and building components and doing different things. That was something that you and your brother always did. Like, your brother was pretty sharp whenever it came to fabricating and building stuff. RIP, shout out to the late, great Dusty. But you guys, like, you've basically, like, continued on with that path and that name, continuing to build something that I feel like if Dusty was still here today, he'd be right in there with you, building it full force.
For sure. For sure.
But you guys built one of those mini mods, right?
We built 4 now.
Okay, so you're at 4, and your daughter wants to run junior sprints, and you're like, I'm going to build a junior sprint.
Yep. I mean, we got the equipment, we got the financial backing, so enough to do what we do. We've built 2 junior sprints. Of course, mind you, one of them's just the restrictor that I-44 runs,
Right.
but there's no difference in them besides the restrictor.
Right.
The other one hasn't hit the track yet, and a couple of the mini mods haven't hit the track yet, but the ones that we have built so far are jamming. I mean, it's great.
What do you think you can accommodate that to, like, give that accomplishment to, of, being so good right out of the box? Is it just years of, like, things that you guys have been trying, because it's you and Bondstat kind of teaming up together?
Absolutely.
And just, sometimes he's dumber than a UPS driver, but, sometimes he's pretty smart.
Yeah.
I hope he doesn't watch this show, because he's going to get a bigger head than he already has.
He'll end up watching it. He knows more than he plays off.
Yeah.
And the good thing about me and him is we two come at it sometimes at the same angle, but most of the time we're coming at it at different angles to where we can checks and balances work pretty well.
Yeah.
We, at the shootout 2 years ago, when Shabester got put in the wall and flipped right in front of Abby, and she hit him head on. I mean, my in-car video shows that all she could see is the sail panel of the car in front of her, and when she stepped out, Shabester was there, and it was hard. It was a hard hit. She we bent a couple bars there. So when we had the car completely tore down, we're looking at it and we're like, we can do this.
Yeah.
And we can take what we know from the big cars,
Right.
from the many different kinds of cars we've raced, and little tips from Trey. Trey Robb, he threw something at me before we even started.
Right.
We went through and built it and went out and practiced it, and it was powder dry racetrack, and it was just getting it. And I was like, man, now I wonder what it's really going to do on a tacky, true race-ready racetrack.
Yeah.
And we went out there, and lap times were right out of the gate half a second faster than our last year's car. And our last year's car wasn't a slouch at all.
Right.
The car just is a lot more stable, and I think that attests to our knowledge from all the different kinds of cars you were talking about earlier.
So have you hot lapped one of the mini mods yet?
No, and yes. I got in one, and clearly I'm big.
Right.
So I didn't have a whole lot of room, and the steering wheel was into the seat belts, and I was like, man, this could be fun. So our cars are 2.5 inches wider on the chassis. Still fit within perimeters, but the chassis itself is a little wider so that a guy like my size can get in it.
Right.
And essentially, when we built the junior sprint, it's got a Sawyer 1 3/4 rear axle, takes the same spacers, takes the same technically axle and all, to where if a dad and a kid are racing together, you can have one set of spares hanging in your trailer instead of two.
Right.
Well, not one side here, one side here. It's all, you only have to buy one set of spares to keep the cost down, because some of that stuff does get
It adds up really
expensive.
quick.
So we thought about all of that too. But yeah, so we have one in the shop right now that we're about to finish picking up a harness while we're here at the Pete Fraser, and it's going to be ready. So it'll make its debut probably next Saturday night. We were hoping that we could have had it here, and Abby and I could mix up out here as opposed to 44, because that's her stomping grounds.
Yeah.
She's used to it. I mean, she's leading points there.
Right.
2 nights left.
That's cool.
And Dad ain't gonna,
that ain't
bow
gonna
down, but at the same time, she would smoke me there because I'm not stupid, But if we get them both on the same track that she's not used to in that kind of car, and I'm not used to, but from what she has said and what I have thought about and what me and James have put together, it's just from the beginning, it's handled to a T.
Right.
We scaled it, checked it out, put it on the track, boom.
Done.
We haven't changed anything. So it was awesome, that humbling, gratifying, man, look what we did.
That moment.
So
Right. So where do you see, it's elite race cars.
Yep.
Where do you see elite, say, in the next 5 years? Do you want to grow into a full-fledged deal? Do you want to make your exit from the full-time gig? Do you want to make that the full-time gig, or is it something that you just want to continue to do on the side?
I think it's for sure something that we keep doing on the side. Ultimately, who wouldn't want to play with race cars all day, every day?
Right.
Do I actually see it happening, being in a money business?
Right.
For 20 years, I don't see how you can't make money building a race car these days.
Right.
The money's more in fabrication stuff, not chassis, the other stuff, Nerf bars, bumpers, having a welder at your house, as opposed to making the chassis. Because if you make a roller car, you're in it quite a bit with all the bolt-on pieces.
Right.
So you don't really make.
So is that becoming something that you guys are kind of exploring into, as far as having those pieces ready on hand, or having the material on hand to whip somebody out a bumper or do stuff like that?
We do. We have the bumper stuff in stock, all that, the stainless steel, the 1-inch tubing for the mini mod guys. We have a page on Hyper Racing that has all of our parts for our components for our cars that they make.
Yeah.
For our cars. You type in Elite on Hyper and it all pops up.
Oh, cool.
So that was kind of making me feel good too.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
Man, that's pretty sweet.
But
so you do repairs too? Do you do any type of repairs to any type of chassis, or are you just kind of sticking to what your forte?
If it's something that's, a rather easy repair, yeah, we can knock it out and help somebody
Right.
out. If it's more extensive that requires, molds and stuff like that,
Yeah.
I'd steer away from it just for liability purposes and
Right.
stuff. I'm not there yet.
Right.
So,
So you're gonna hop in this car that you've built, this new one.
yeah, I'm hoping. See, the 2 nights left at the 44 and Abby, with her opportunity to win a championship, I didn't want to press it because, like you said, with Peyton and Abby both going,
Right.
and me being the weird control freak that I am in
Right.
the pits, I don't want to make time for me.
Yeah.
And
You
make
don't
sure
want to
everything's-
take away from them, right?
So the last night, if everything's going good and everything is still where it's supposed
Kosher
to be,
and ready to go.
I'm going to get in it and I'm going to race her. So
Give her a little run for her money, maybe.
I hope. If
Yeah.
it handles like that everybody's talking.
Here's a question for you. I mean, you're a mini mod guy. Let's just go ahead and address the roaming, whatever you want to call it, the snake in the ground, whatever you want to call it, the elephant in the room. That's what I was
There you
looking
go.
for. No mini mods at the shootout this year. How do you feel about that?
Well, it's what based our decision on going to the shootout. Well, we had intentions on Peyton was going to race it, even though she's not ready.
Right.
I mean, we're already there.
Yeah.
We were already planning to come to Port City for the Pete Fraser. I don't know if she's 100% ready for that.
Right.
But we're here. We're going to
Yeah.
start her on the back, let her get some seat time.
Yeah.
Same thing with the shootout. It's $100 extra. We're already there.
Right.
Let her enjoy it and the experience.
Right.
It's aggravating. Not only I kind of heard the writing on the wall, heard it through the grapevine last year that this is last year for the mini mod. This is last year for the mini mods, and I made started a few conversations with a few people to see if it was true or not, going directly
Right.
to the source. And I thought we had at least this year.
Right.
And last year we didn't get to race it. And it sucks because the car was ready. And the way it handles
Yeah.
and the way it works, we had a contender.
Right.
So not getting to and finding out this late into the year with so many around our area, plus the mini mods of Texas are firing up. They've got 15 cars there
Right.
now. And the non-support, I guess, of Creek County, I guess,
It's kinda
is what the general
Right,
thesis
consensus,
is
yeah.
of the reason why, which
Which-
that stinks
so-
because there's so many other cars up north that come here too.
Right.
It shouldn't.
Be based off of that
One
just one thing.
racetrack's deal.
So let me ask you this: on a regular basis, you guys are averaging 18, right? Ish.
Beginning of the year, we had 22 the first night, and we've averaged 15 to 18 cars a night,
Right.
and I can count 5-6 cars a night that aren't there, just knowing off of muscle memory
Right.
that or haven't been there,
Yeah.
or not there that night, and it's still growing. The rules that have been so up in the air, 2 different places, we've got them going parallel, which doesn't really make a difference now because the shootout rules
Right.
doesn't matter.
Obsolete.
And
yeah.
then what we have going at I-44 plus all the mini mod guys, all the rules are similar to the same now, so much that the guys from the north can come down
yeah.
to 44 or Texas, and everybody will be on pretty much the same level playing field.
Right.
They pulled them too soon.
Yeah, that's kind of my feeling in a way, because you remember back in the day we had those mini late models that
Yep.
ran at I-44, right? And it seemed like we ran those for a couple of years, 2-3 years, and then it's like they just kind of went away. And I feel like they didn't have enough time to like really get going.
Mark and Glory have done a pretty good job at keeping them alive, because from 14 all the way to 19, before the Excel cars came in, they'd have 4 and 5 cars a night,
Right.
and they'd still run them,
Right.
which kept the interest. Because, a lot of people, and you see it 4 or 5 cars for week on end, they think, well, not even buying one, they're not going to keep them.
Right.
So then overnight in 19 and 20, when Nightmare allowed Excel or so, however that happened. I wasn't
Right.
part of it then.
Yeah.
To come in, we were having, 10 to 15 then.
Right.
And then 15 to 20. So, you know how classes grow.
Yeah.
It just finally started taking off.
Taking off a little bit more
So-
and more and more.
Hopefully it keeps that trend.
Yeah. Hopefully. So right now the schedule just has you guys kind of like bi-weekly, right?
Right.
I know that Terry Maddox has tried to step in and try to help do a mini mod series, and more than likely I can see him kind of sticking it out and helping the series to grow. Flashing back to whenever you were a race car driver, are you ready for some rapid questions?
Yeah.
So back in the day, were you like a heavy or dry slick track?
Originally, I was heavy because,
Yeah.
anybody can drive a heavy racetrack
Right.
and think they're going somewhere.
Yeah.
As you develop and you get a better foot, the dry slick becomes more of a fun
Yeah.
track, because in the big cars, I don't know, micros, what they like or what they don't. But I'd say in the end, I liked it getting dry.
Were you like a bottom guy, or were you a tops up here bud before tops up here bud was tops up here bud?
Fairgrounds,
Yeah.
it was middle high.
Middle high?
Ardmore, I was as close to the tractor tire as I could get.
Really?
But, I went out on, I'd like to say I went out on top.
Yeah.
And we only raced every other week, just funding and such.
Right.
Got third in points, not too far out of first, just
Yeah.
racing every other week because we won every time we went.
Right.
And keeps you humble, 'cause
Right.
it was cool when I left. You have that mentality of, hey, I'm going out on top.
Right.
But there, it was always as low as I could get.
Yeah.
I tried the top a couple of times, and I'm fish out of water.
Not liking it.
No tops up here, bud, at all.
Favorite racetrack of all time that you've raced on?
It's a real toss-up between Meeker and Ardmore.
Really?
I really like the fairgrounds, but
You raced Meeker back whenever it was more of a D-shaped track too, right? That was back in the day.
before he cut it back down.
Yeah,
to
yeah,
the
yeah.
quarter. Yeah.
That was a fun track. I like what Cody's done
And I
to
don't
it,
know,
but
racing period. It doesn't matter really where you're racing on a big car. They're all
you're just a racing.
yeah.
You're just glad to be racing.
That's it.
Do you miss it?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
I feel more accomplished. I feel more needed, and I feel like it's when you have 3 kids, it's not about you anymore.
Right.
It's about all your kids, and I feel more needed and not so. It's not selfish
Right.
because they want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to get back in one. That's why we made these cars to where we could fit.
Right.
But I've even said after we build them 1 or 2 times just to feel it.
Just to see what it feels like.
So,
So as
make
a
sure I beat her.
yeah.
Get a couple pictures.
So as a racing dad, what are some things, like if you had to give some pieces of information or some words of advice to like another parent that's just coming into the racing scene, or that is just now hanging up the helmet because their kid wants to race, what would be like some words of wisdom or some words of advice that we could close out on
This day and age,
this day and age?
don't be so apt to think that it's never your kid's fault.
Yeah.
I'm not super hard, but I'm if I see something happen, I can stand back and look at both angles and see if my kid messed up, I'm going to go to him and say, this is where you messed up. The whole thing might not have been your fault, but you could have done this or that.
Right.
As opposed to one of the parents these days, they're just like, it's never their kid's fault.
So sometimes it is your kid's fault.
Yeah.
And you got to be able to be an equal
That's it.
equal there.
Yeah.
There you go. Hey, Facebook, YouTube, wherever you're watching this at, thanks for tuning in. And remember, sometimes it just might be your fault.
Performance Electronics, custom electronic solutions. From design to manufacturing, let us put your ideas in motion and become your company's full-service electronics manufacturing experts. Performance Electronics.